Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me okay. So first of all, nice to meet you all. My name's Mike Drucker. I am a Senior Manager for Product Marketing for Reuters, and thanks very much for the organisers for inviting me to come today to talk about how we introduced a kind of brand new go-to-market framework to Reuters, a hugely long-term organisation, but thanks to a huge number of internal stakeholders. So just a bit of an introduction on me. So I've been working in marketing for about 14 years or so in a mixture of demand generation and product marketing roles. Also a mixture of different industries and sizes of organizations. So you kind of established tech companies like Meta, and first of all, I'm in trouble obviously for the old branding. Also startup ad tech companies such as Myriad, and also digital transformative organizations such as Pearson and the FT. But the reason why what interested me about joining Reuters is not just because they're an established organization, but it's the opportunity to come into that type of company and really establish a product marketing function and also a go-to-market framework. So for those, and it's good that I added this slide in, because for those that don't know Reuters, and there's a lot of people that don't because we're a very quiet brand, we're a news provider. We supply news to billions around the world. Now we supply news to publishers, such as the New York Times, broadcasters such as BBC and Sky News, but also corporates and government agencies where they need to have key insights to make crucial decisions. And really our USPs are trustworthy, we're unbiased, we're independent, we don't have opinion, but also for our speed. And a lot of people don't know, we've been first to a lot of huge news stories in the history. So for whether that was Lincoln's assassination, Titanic, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and Saddam Hussein being captured, we were there first. And the reason why we can be first is because of the number of journalists and reporters we have on the ground worldwide. We've got over 2,500 journalists based in over 200 locations with products in over 16 languages. So what does those products look like as just a key summary? So as I said, we provide news content, and that can be in a number of different ways. So that could be video on the ground. It could also be Pulitzer-winning images and photography, which I'll show you in a second. News wires that are speedy and accurate, but also audio and graphics. And our customers can essentially subscribe directly to these products. They can have it integrated through APIs into their systems, but also we have our content marketplace called Reuters Connect, where basically customers can go in there, purchase a number of points and credits and decide what content they want to purchase to engage their audiences. And that could also be not just our own Reuters content, but content from over 90+ media partners. And I always like to have this slide because, again, people don't necessarily know where they've seen Reuters content. They're saying, oh, yeah, we see news stories, but it's not from Reuters, it's from the BBC, it's from Sky News, and a lot of chances it has actually come from us. And this is some of our famous images over the last year or so. The top left image as well is, again, a Pulitzer-winning image that we've had. So going back to, I joined Reuters as kind of the first product marketing manager, and it was really interesting. I was really encouraged at the start. So it's like, wow, there's product launches happening. This is great. So there's not been product marketing. And I was invited to some of the launches at the beginning. But what was really interesting is when I was joining those meetings, I saw a lot of these faces, not the most happy faces. And then when I was kind of speaking to kind of product and to sales and marketing, launch metrics were not being met. Product OKRs were not being met. And essentially, there was a lot of frustration. So I kind of investigated why. And there was a lot of launches that were failing. Now, I know we had I Love You Man, and this is a bit of a cult classic in my eyes, but essentially what I was seeing was the launches were failing to launch. So I had to kind of investigate why this was the case. And essentially what we discovered really, there was kind of three themes that were happening in terms of product launches before I started and what I was seeing. There was a lack of transparency around the business. So there was issues with road mapping. We've heard a lot about that today. But it's really what was happening is when I was speaking to the sales team, they didn't know what was on the roadmap. They didn't know what was happening next quarter. They didn't know what was happening for the rest of the year. And the reason being is, they said, look, product came to present us the roadmaps, but that was at the beginning of the year in the annual sales meeting. And that's combined with all the different updates. And of course, we're hungover from the night before in the sales meeting. So we can't remember what's on the roadmap. And also, there wasn't that reinforcement throughout the year. And also, when you had new sales team members joining, they obviously didn't really have a clue what was happening. And then transparency around launch success. No one really knew what was happening with our launches. And probably worryingly as well, that was the case with some of our product teams as well. But because we weren't kind of transparent and we didn't have regular cadence with reporting in Salesforce and various other tools, no one really knew what was happening and how activities were helping to achieve those launches. Speaking to the sales team again, they were telling me again, when we were doing some of these launch meetings and some of these launches, we weren't really giving them the tools to help them. We weren't giving them information about why we're doing these product launches. Why do they benefit the customer? Where's the market fit? Where's the validation? What's the addressable market? And where's the targeting? You're not telling us who to target and the use cases. And then also speaking to the product team, because they were kind of owning those product launches, they didn't know how to launch. They didn't know when best to launch. They didn't know who was responsible collateral, and also they didn't know whether they should be involved in demand generation or how they should be involved in and what even type of campaigns there should be. And what was really interesting before this session, I wanted to kind of get some feedback to see whether these were issues happening currently in other organizations. So I created a survey, sent it out to my network, but also to many of you here. And what was really interesting is, yes, it's positively that 57% of you feel that a lot of teams are working together, they're transparent, they know what's happening with launches, but 43% feel that not all the teams, not all kind of our stakeholders are working together or involved to ensure that a product is launched effectively. So I looked into this in a bit more deeper and asked kind of what teams do you want to be involved? Who should really know what's happening with our launches and are not? And 67% of you guys and everyone else was basically saying customer-facing teams, whether that's sales teams or customer success, were not really being involved in launches. And what was really interesting about the roadmap comment I kind of said earlier was that people would say in the survey that 76% currently of your sales teams are unaware of what's coming up on the product roadmap. So the next step was to kind of build a superstar team to build a kind of go-to-market framework. Now, I know, and hence carrying out the results in the survey, that we need these teams together internally to really build up a framework. And any excuse for me to put in a Reading Football Club slide, I will always take that. Oh, great supporter. There's two supporters now already here. So this is the 2006 Reading Football Club team, record points total still. I wish we currently were playing that well. But essentially, as I said, what I knew we need to do was we needed to build a launch cadence. We needed to build a go-to-market strategy. And I needed some internal kind of superstars and supporters to help me build that. Introducing April Logan, who's our head of sales and excellence, and Zoe Walters, our product director. And essentially, the reason why I went to these guys to really help me build a kind of new launch framework was they had significant influence within the organizations, not just within their teams, but in wider teams. And they were also in some of those launch meetings with me at the very beginning, and I could see their frustration. And also, we work well together. And that would be kind of my advice would be, is when you're kind of looking at how you can build a launch process, a go-to-market process where teams are pulling together to support launches. Look for those that you work well the most with, first of all, and those that have influence. And they certainly had that. So the first thing that we wanted to do was to kind of build that framework to see what a typical go-to-market launch would look like. And the first thing that we wanted to do was build a go-to-market launch document. And this would be a blueprint that we would have for each of our launches. So in there, we would have addressable market, we would have links to research, links to that validation of why we're launching those products. And again, because that was feedback that we had from the sales team saying this was not happening, and then launch timelines. And then we would put a cadence in to make sure that we would always have a launch meeting at least 8 weeks before the launch, so where we can plan activities, get the stakeholders involved, and fill out those internal product documentation for the sales team. Now, the next thing that we wanted to do, which was the interesting part, was, I think my slide's gone. So the next kind of thing that we wanted to do was ensure that we went back to the roadmap and see, okay, what launches are coming up? Now, this started in Q2 this year, where we kind of came up with a GTM leadership team and started to look at the launches. And like us, like the sales team, we didn't really know what launches were coming up. So we went back to the roadmap, went back to the product team, and started planning what launches were happening for the rest of the year. And quite scarily, a lot of the launches were happening in the next quarter. Most of them were happening in the next quarter. So this kind of started raising this question. It goes, okay, we want to have this formal go-to-market process, but most of our launches are happening in the next quarter. Can we effectively launch all of these products as much as we want to? Should they have the same, same kind of TLC as each other? Are they as important as each other? Because we're all thinly resourced. Because at the time, I was the only product marketing manager. April's sales excellence team, which looks after the training side of it, has a small team and looks at different parts of the Reuters business. And the marketing budget was quite small because the marketing budget was done at the beginning of the year, and therefore it was quite difficult to get that spend that we want for campaigns. So we knew that we had to prioritize our launches going forward and make sure we treated them all differently. So kind of introducing the tiering system that we kind of came up with. And this is how we divided up our product launches for the rest of the year and going forward. So here we prioritize our launches on two things: the strategic importance of the launches, and also the revenue attached to the resources. And this really helped us allocate how we should treat each launch. So, for example, that tier 1 launch is where it's at that full-scale launch, is for product launches where there is strategic importance and with huge amount of revenue attached to it. So a couple of examples being is, during this year, we had to simplify our text newswire product line. We wanted to retire a lot of products, but also launch brand new products, including a new custom newswire where customers can pick and choose the topics they wanted in their newswire. Now, the reason why this was a tier 1 launch was because the newswires business is a huge part of our Reuters news agency. It's arguably our second biggest product line. Another tier 1 launch that we had was, due to customer feedback, we wanted to add stock content to our Reuters Connect marketplace. And we worked with Alamy stock company to ingest over 100 million assets into Reuters Connect. This meant that it allowed customers to really access a new product and ensure that we're getting more money from our existing customer base, and rather than having different agreements and different licenses with vendors. Now, there wasn't a huge amount of revenue attached to this launch, especially for the first year, but the reason why we said it was a tier 1 launch is because it was a strategic launch for our company. It's adding a further capability to our Reuters Connect platform, which is our fastest growing product. And then you have the second tier 2, which is kind of smaller product launches and scaling new propositions. And then the tier 3, which is kind of this new feature updates, product enhancements, which will, of course, get a launch, but it'll be a much more softer launch. And the example here was we just updated our search and advanced search options on Reuters Connect. Now, this ensures that our customers get better search responses and get more accurate search responses. And this was a tier 3 because it wasn't a huge update for us. And this goes in a bit more detail on how we actually allocated the resources, because as I said, the objective of what we wanted to do was really see, okay, what would a tier 1 get compared to a tier 3? But this also aligned with the framework that we had to ensure that there was consistent activities happening. So for example, for a tier 3 launch, which as I said was kind of a new feature update, we would ensure that we were really clear with the KPIs and product success metrics and really clear with the customer feedback that we're getting. Because as I was saying, there wasn't a huge amount of transparency on why we were launching products. So we were saying for all launches, we'd be really clear with the sales team on why we're launching this, what do we see successes, and the customer feedback behind it. We always also said there would be at least some kind of individual sales training on the launch as well. So previously, we had a sales monthly meeting where it's just like an updates meeting, news that happens, and we always had a slot there. But again, like the roadmap issues that we had previously, there's so many updates that are said on a monthly basis that they just got lost with our sales team. So we said there's going to be a dedicated sales session for each of our launches. There'll be internal product documentation, as I said, and there would always be some type of comms. So whether that was an insertion in our Reuters update email, which goes out fortnightly, but also using our platform more, using Reuters Connect more. So for example, we're using banners on Reuters Connect and adding updates into our help pages. And then we'd always have a post-launch review meeting as well, where we'd always look on a monthly basis to see what has happened, where do we need to refine the messaging, how do we change tactics, marketing tactics. And then you get onto tier 2, where it's those product launches. And again, we'd be really clear on pricing. How did we come up to that pricing to the sales team? What have we looked at? What market forces and competitive insights have we looked at? And the reason why, again, pricing is based on market forces, it's based on customer insight, but the sales team didn't know about it. And we knew to get them on side and to be transparent, we had to be clear on that. Now, to increase our training, the training efforts would step up. And then also we would look at ensuring that they get the right collateral and consistently. So for example, we would have an external product sheet, which is essentially a one-page which they can send to our customers on the new launch. And then we've also got an internal battle card, which I'll show you in a minute, where we kind of looked at how can we give them the information they need to handle objections and to help us see how we compete with our competitors. Now, there would always be the Salesforce campaigns to ensure that there will be reporting and consistent reporting. And we would give the sales team the right messaging for emails that they want to send out or for them to kind of call up their customers. And most importantly, I think the target list, that's what they wanted. That's what they wanted the most, and that's what they're kind of happy with. And then the marketing messaging would step up. We would do more kind of demand generation for these launches, so paid media, social campaigns. And we would use GagaLamp more. So I'm not sure how well-known GagaLamp is, but it is a tool that allows our sales team to push messaging on their social channels. So we were using this before, but we weren't using it for launches, so we wanted to use that more. And as I said, it was also when we were coming up with this kind of tiering system and the framework, it gave us the opportunity to relook at the collateral and start coming up with frameworks and working with the sales team and getting them involved, as said in the go-to-market process. So we looked to kind of create these battle card tools, which is, again, it's like a one-pager that goes on each of our launches, looks at how we through an elevation pitch, how we communicate our USPs, but also how we can compete with our competitors, most importantly, both favorably and unfavorably, so they were ready to kind of handle any objections and who we were talking to. And as well as the battle card for the sales team, one of the templates that I also wanted to create was a messaging pack for our marketing team and also the agencies that we were working with. Because again, a lot of the feedback was from marketing and agencies is, we're not product experts, we need your support and we need this documentation to support, which is completely understandable. So hence why I created this, which is a 2-slider, which we do for each of our tier 2 to tier 3 launches, where we look at our audience, we look at what they value, we look at their challenges, and then we go into detail on how the launch adds value and what competitor insights are. So it's building those templates as well as this framework. And then we go to the tier 1, which are those full-scale launches, and it would be everything that would happen in tier 2 and tier 3, but it would have more persona information, we would have further collateral, we would bring PR and comms in, and then we'll do a lot more of these sales campaigns, which are essentially incentives for the sales team. You know, for example, the first person to make a sale, the first person to engage customers with the new launch would get this incentive. And that was by having someone like April, who's head of the sales excellence and sales enablement, to really help us get this kind of incentives off the ground. And then the training would go up a level. So we'd do a lot more role-play-based training, where again, we would have split the sales team up and they would talk through the challenges and how the launch answers those challenges. But the question that we really had was, okay, so we know now what launches are coming up because we've looked at the roadmap and we've now split what kind of resources will they get. But there's an ownership issue, and how do we ensure that everyone that we want to support us in the launches is really going to help us do that? So introducing the good old RACI matrix. Now, this was talked about earlier. Susan, I think, mentioned this earlier. And for those that don't know what RACI stands for, it's for those who are responsible, accountable, who need to be consulted and who needs to be informed within a project. And I really think it's the best way when splitting out a go-to-market framework and seeing what teams, what roles do you want people internally to play? Who's going to be responsible, who's going to be accountable, etc. And what we did was we got we've got those 30-odd activities that we had here, and then we went through them and we went through the RACI to see who's going to be doing what. Now, the most important thing that we knew we had to do for this is in a go-to-market leadership team, the three of us, me, April, and Zoe, we kind of agreed who was going to be doing what, but we knew we had to get buy-in from senior leaders. And we knew we had to educate teams such as like marketing, demand generation, to why we need them to be held accountable for some of these tactics within a launch. So we kind of did a bit of like a roadshow, a bit of education roadshow, where we're going to each of those teams to explain their role and the importance of their role. So for example, we went to the marketing team and said, look, the sales team are going to be coming to you to say they need to be help, they need help from campaigns. So that's why you need to be responsible, accountable for some of these campaigns. But it works both ways because, don't worry, I'm going to have to be responsible, accountable to giving you the messaging and the value proposition to support the campaigns. So it just documents that responsibility. And then same with the sales team. It's like, you want world-class content and collateral, but then you need to give us insights to support our win-loss analysis so we can then refine our collateral. And the same with the product. It's like, yeah, we're responsible for the materials, but you need to also help us and be responsible by getting us and supporting us with the roadmap and giving us information as quick as possible. And this is far too small, and this is the only version I could fit in the page. But this is an example of the first kind of draft that we had, where we looked at all the different, pre-launch, launch, and post-launch activities, and then we looked at see who was going to be using the RACI matrix, who was going to be responsible for each of these launches. I remember there was a question in Susan's talk earlier that somebody asked, does it need to be a spreadsheet or do you use software for RACI? And I think for us, because we knew we were under time pressure and we wanted to get launches off effectively, we wanted to start off with some spreadsheets and just get these tasks going. But we are looking at software solutions going forward. So we had that framework. We got everyone kind of got on board and was happy to kind of support the product marketing, go-to-market activities. But we knew we had to satisfy the transparency communication aspect. Don't worry, I'm not. I know there's Seismic here today. I'm not being paid by them, but we use Seismic as a huge tool for us in communicating to our internal teams about our launches. So, for example, Seismic is an enablement hub. We would have the roadmap. We would regularly update the roadmap on there. We would have the RACI metrics so people could see what was happening and who's responsible and who they should be going to with feedback or with questions. We then signposted collateral more effectively for launches. There were individual launch pages. We would then, as a go-to-market leadership, myself, April, and Zoe, would meet regularly to see how we could refine the process. But then we would also have monthly meetings with the sales team where we would update them with the roadmap and so they're fully aware of what's happening. And then, as I said, we use Salesforce a lot more on a regular basis so people could see the kind of insights and make it available, the reports, the campaign reports to our stakeholders. And essentially, it's been a quite busy kind of 6 months or so because, as I said, we started this in Q2. Obviously, we're in Q4 at the moment. And already, we've seen a bit of a culture change, a culture shift, where before, the teams weren't sure what was happening. Teams weren't really aware who's responsible for what. And we're starting to see that success with actually tangible results. So a lot of our launches have been for Reuters Connect platform over these 6 months. And our NPS score has improved. Now, as I said, we also had our Newswire's launch, and we've already seen a 4% growth when we predicted 2% growth before we started looking at this process. But one of the metrics that I'm really pleased about, and these micro conversions are really important for the overall conversion, is the use of product marketing assets on Seismic. Now, we're not doing more enablement assets that we did before, but they're better signposted, they're better integrated into sales training. And we've seen a 225% increase in views, downloads, and sends to customers. And Gagalamp, as I said, we're using it a lot more, and we've seen a huge amount of increase of reach of our customers knowing what's happening, what we're launching, with an increase of reach from 400K to 1.4 million. And as you can see, some of the internal feedback that we had has been really good and really important. So to finish off and to summarize, as I said, it has been a culture change. As I said, we've gone from a process where people weren't on board. They didn't know what was happening, but we've created this framework. We've got buy-in and education, and people know what's happening, not just next quarter, but also going forward to next year as well. And we can definitely feel that now teams have that transparency. We are communicating what our launches are in a bit more of a structured and functional way. And now people know what the ownership is. And it's not just product marketing. It's not just sales excellent product, but it's also demand generation, it's PR and comms. They know what their role is in the go-to-market framework. And that is it. That's me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Michael, thank you.